Assalamu alaikum, dear audience. This is Sanobar Sultan, and here you are watching another video on Sanobar's World. Today's video is about the founder of our country, Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And I would like to just sort of focus on some analytical aspect of how he changed from being part of Congress and then having dual membership of Congress and the Muslim League, and then eventually becoming the sole ambassador of the Muslim League. Also, there were life changes in his personality, in his outlook, from his years in London to his barrister years, and then eventually his difference from Congress and what the subcontinent should be after the decolonization. This is also, just to mention towards the last year, because he only lived, because he died in 1948. The Jinnah of Pakistan was different from the Jinnah of the youth. Most notably, the Jinnah in the last decade of his life had the same characteristics of determination, principles, astuteness, stubbornness, except that this time the goals had changed and stubbornness or clear-sightedness of the goal was unlike ever before, because they were now vouching for a separate country. Jinnah, the ambassador of Hindu-Muslim unity, became the leader of the, quote, Muslimans, unquote, of India against the Congress, whom he now referred to as a, quote, Hindu, unquote, party being run on pure discrimination against the Muslims. Those Muslims who remained in the umbrella of Congress, such as Abul Kalam Azad, were referred to by Jinnah as, quote, showboys, unquote, and, quote, traitors, unquote. Another character from the decolonization period of the subcontinent is, of course, Gandhi. Now, it is noteworthy that Nehru absolutely loathed Jinnah, and Jinnah also never hid his animosity towards Nehru, labeling him as, quote, nothing but Peter Pan, unquote. But it is interesting that both somehow depended on Gandhi as a communicator, for he was the link between the Muslim League and the Congress. The Jinnah-Gandhi talks resulted from initiations from both the individuals, but ended with no results, for both were poles apart in their political views, in their appearance, and yet both could not outdo each other. Jinnah claimed partition, while Gandhi claimed that there was no need for partition. Thus, there was no middle ground where the stakes were completely the opposite, and neither was willing to concede. Jinnah was frustrated at Gandhi's humble rhetoric that he's not a representative of Congress, but is merely a citizen who can only plead to the masses. Jinnah neither had the time nor the appetite to spend futile hours in a discussion with a philosopher who did not even represent Congress anymore, while the political milieu and drama was at its highest in the closing years of British imperialism. And when he had promised to his millions of followers that soon, quote, Pakistan shall be at your feet, unquote. And while I'm suggesting that Gandhi claimed that he was no longer a representative of Congress, because he was eventually, towards the later years, sidelined by the younger lot in Congress, especially Nehru. There are two life-changing events in Jinnah's political career that you can say shaped um, his outlook to change himself as an ambassador of Hindu-Muslim unity and then become an ambassador purely for the Muslim League. And I would like to, those two examples that happened in his life. Now, the first one was actually the very first meeting Jinnah had with Gandhi. Was a function that was held in honor of Gandhi in 1915 by the Gujarat Society, chaired by Jinnah himself. Jinnah was taken aback when Gandhi publicly responded to him, and that Jinnah was, quote, glad, that Gandhi was, quote, glad to find a Muhammadan, unquote, not only belonging to his own region, Sabah, but chairing it, unquote. By this we mean, actually, interestingly, both Jinnah and Gandhi were, their roots were in Gujarat. So the key word here is that Gandhi called Jinnah a Muhammadan, whereas Jinnah himself did not consider his identity to be of a Muslim. He considered himself a secular Indian who spent most of his life in London at that time. And for the first time in his life, someone had stated to the secular Jinnah that he was actually a, quote, Muhammadan, unquote, who belonged to a religious minority in the subcontinent. It is not known whether Gandhi had meant this in a malicious way, but Jinnah did not take this analogy lightly, for he took this as a personal insult in a public gathering, and this set the course of their future relationship as, quote, natural enemies, unquote. Although both did not know what the future may hold, but yet the animosity had set in. The second event of that greatly affected Jinnah was when Nehru did this speech where he claimed that the Muslim League was hardly a party of the masses and that Jinnah knows little about the poor Muslims, and that, quote, may I suggest to Mr. Jinnah that I come into greater touch with the Muslim masses than most of the members of the Muslim League, unquote. This public chastisement affected Jinnah, but in a way that Nehru challenged Jinnah to leave the drawing room politics and laid out for him his future course of action. It can be said that the bashfulness of Nehru helped Jinnah, for now he knew exactly what he needed to do, and he took this challenge not only with emotions or by not with emotions or by losing his temper, but with political arithmetics that he was good at. It was after this speech that Jinnah and the Muslim League began their mass campaign to reach out to the millions of Muslims, and indeed it saw the grassroots popularity of Muslim League among the poor, who now all were united under the banner of Islam and the leadership of the Qaid, who, although did not speak their language very well, but knew that he would liberate them from the Congress rule. Nehru must have felt that his public criticism had a boomerang effect. Eventually, as it is known, Pakistan was carved out from the Golden Bird, which was the subcontinent, on 14th August 1947. And yeah, lastly, I would just say that both the Congress and the British initially believed that Pakistan was merely a political bargaining chip for the Muslim League. But it seems that, of course, this was not true. But the sad part is that that Jinnah's Pakistan, what was envisioned, was eventually hijacked. That those years of struggle were hijacked and corroborated by people and parties who came up with their own future guidelines and principles, bringing their own interpretation. Another problem in the Pakistani discussion of M.A. Jinnah is that he has been put at such an altar as if he is unreachable, and something that some individual that should be revered to such a level that it is almost unholy to discuss them or talk about them. Unfortunately, this is the narrative even in common discussions in Pakistan among students. Very few actually discuss the founders of the country because they think this is somehow, something that must be left untouched and not to be discussed and deliberated. So this was a little bit about my information about what were the personal, what were his personal drives, how he came, he spent his initial years in London, eventually came back to the subcontinent, became the highest paid barrister, had a political career, was an absolutely self-made man, a man of principles, a man of honor, integrity, and yeah, made a country. So that was a little story about Jinnah. Hope you all enjoyed it, and thank you very much for watching this video, and I shall see you all very soon. Bye bye.